Hey everyone, this is Andrew. Welcome to Atomo. It is July. I even forget what date it is. There we go, July 21st, 2023. I've been quiet for a while because essentially there really wasn't anything of note going on. Looking to see, we know that there's some ramp up going to the U.S. election. So there's just been the various talking heads. There's been, a little bit of interesting fun times with a perceived, rebellion of the Wagner group to Russia. But it really hasn't seemed that there have been any large political movements on the game board until recently. Some things started to happen. And I kind of noticed when yield curves for the 10-year in Europe were going up. So if you were to look at Germany, France, from Germany, France, Spain, for example, you take a look at those, they were kind of reaching their support lines. And that was in the run up to the NATO conference that happened at Vilnius. But there's something else that happened I didn't realize actually happened until I started to do some research. So if we were to take a look at let's take a look at this one here. So you've probably seen this meme rolling around where you have Zelensky out in front of all these bigwigs at the NATO conference. And one of the things I was thinking was they're going to go into the NATO conference and they're going to start to figure out how to give this little manlet more bombs and stuff and really start to create a lot of havoc over in Europe. But it didn't happen. The memes started to come out, and there's many calling, fading Zelensky out of this picture, calling him the ghost of Kiev to, play tongue in cheek with the ghost of Kiev, the fighter jet that was shooting down all the Russian jets single handedly in the early phase of the war, as the PSYOP people were testing their PSYOP and seeing how these messages were rolling across social media. Well, if you take a look in this picture, you see everybody just kind of, it doesn't look like there's any big war or any big problem going on. They're all just kind of doing their thing and are paying Zelensky no attention at all whatsoever, which made him send out some nasty gram tweets that just kind of like throwing a tantrum. So something happened. Now, this happened in July 11. It was the NATO summit, July 11th to July 12th. What happened before that? Well, here we go. The U.S. Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, she looks like kind of a little emperor there, doesn't she? She goes out and she visits China. Let's think about that. Is she the Secretary of State? Nope. Is she the president? Nope. Is she the vice president? Nope. Or unlike when Speaker of the House Pelosi went to Taiwan, because it's, they can't send the vegetable potato Biden over to speak with Xi Jinping, leader of China. So it's like, well, why would the U.S. Treasury Secretary be going over to China? These are the things I just don't have answers for. But it almost seemed like, okay, she goes over to China. Let's take a look. It should be saying around, let's see, revive relations. No, she actually met with the number 2, Li Keng. Revive relations at her lowest level in decades due to disputes over security, Treasury Secretary, technology, Treasury Secretary, other irritants, like they're throwing some pool chemicals around. Treasury officials have said she wouldn't meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Okay, so I take that back. I thought she meant she. No, the second in command, but still, the stuff that she was talking about. So if I look through that, there's something that went on, and I'm still trying to roll through and determine, well, what does it mean by healthy economic competition? What I suspect is she went hat in hand because Christine Lagarde over in Europe has a problem. She can't keep the yield spreads on her bonds at an appropriate level at the same time as managing the euro as a currency and keeping that at a stable level. Like the two, if your currency goes up, then usually your bond yields go a little bit in the opposite direction. So they don't play exactly at the same level. So we're wondering at this point whether, because the $4 trillion debt ceiling went through and the war in Ukraine is increasing in war wariness in the USA. Like you can see the memes that are coming up. People are just throwing memes around. They're tired of it. They're tired of, and Tucker Carlson went through, and there's another meme that went through. Let's see if I can find this in real time. Tucker Carlson Grim Reaper meme. Where, okay, that's not the correct one. There's another one where he went through and it has on the meme him taking down all of the Republican candidates for president, save for Vivek and Donald Trump. And the big one was with Mike Pence, where Mike Pence basically said, Tucker said, well, you're sending all this money and stuff to Ukraine. How about spending it here at home? I'm in Canada, but no, hey, USA are our buddies too down south there. And we're looking out for you. And Pence basically said, to the U.S. citizens, you're not my concern. So homelessness running rampant, culture wars running through, and the state of the U.S. is weakening, and money's getting flown out all over the place to Ukraine. And how do we fix things at home? Mike Pence basically says, not my concern. So, well, what's going on? Well, the whole thing is starting to unravel. The lie machine, when you try to pile lies on top of lies on top of lies, hey, Ukraine is winning. No, there's no leak of a certain virus out anywhere. There's nothing like that. Nothing of that happened, and it's all doesn't work together anymore. So it starts to fall apart. And so now we have another, I'm showing, here's a bunch of videos here. If you search the RFK Jr testimony in Congress, you'll find that this is a federal government hearing on government censorship, where they were trying to censor RFK Jr. from speaking. Like, And it was one heavily scripted event where you kind of had this dipshit over here, Plaskett, reading off of lines that seemingly been coming from, some interns that maybe they're Hollywood scriptwriter interns kind of writing sound bites that are going to be picked up by the bought and paid for media so they can run these sound clips and just basically they even tried to get RFK Jr kicked out of the session by just throwing the cards. You throw the hate cards, the name calling cards at him because he was quoting a particular here he is here. So I got an article from the Defender where he was talking about a particular study where they were looking at certain racial groups and the impact of the thing that I don't want to say because I'm on this particular platform and send any warnings up. There was a study saying, did the woo-woo virus do something to other particular races? And so they were calling him out on that. But then one of the members put forward the actual documents and entered them into the exhibit saying, yeah, well, here's the actual things that he was referencing. So he wasn't making this stuff up. He was pulling the documents for it. So, and this is the big thing is, okay, he's running for the Democratic nomination and the Democrats are trying to pull him apart. So what is potentially going on here? Well, we'll kind of bring it over to, here's another name that you might not know too much about, but Judy Shelton was potentially going to be the Fed chair. But as it's saying in the Wikipedia article here is that her confirmation did not go ahead. Her views were extremely extreme and ill-considered. So what we're seeing here, especially with RFK Jr., is it's not that in these hearings that he's trying to, ping pong with the other side. It's more of you're seeing groups grab the megaphone and the Democrat crew in these sessions were talking much about grabbing the megaphone. So this is something about Marxists and these lefty types is they will telegraph their moves, kind of like in a boxing match. They will telegraph the punch from a long way off, just that the Republicans are too slow to dodge or do anything about it. Typically, they just sit there and take the punch. It's like, oh, a punch is coming. What should I do? Then they get nailed by it. They're not as fast as progressives tend to be, more open, easier to kind of work with fluidity when things are changing. And conservatives, well, that's why they're traditional and conservative. Once you got the train on the tracks, conservatives will run that train very efficiently. But if you were to give the train to a bunch of progressives to run efficiently, they'll try to, next thing you know it, flowers and rainbows and sparkles will be flowing out of it and it'll be completely off the tracks. Oh, yeah. Trains falling off tracks. What would you think? Yeah, I don't want to get into that. That's a completely other set of videos. So what RFK Jr. is doing, back to the megaphones, is both sides are trying to get the talking points that they can package up and send out through their media zones. So this is all a show. Everything you see here is a show. But RFK Jr. knows how to play the show. So he's taking very specific talking points. And if you're listening to this right now, you probably know about a lot of these talking points. You have a group of people who will follow the mainstream media, the fake news, or whatever you want to call it, that it is playing one side of the talking points. You got RFK Jr., who's now seemingly plugged into alternate media. Not that he's watching my show, but I'm taking, if we are crowdsourcing, let's put it that way, you get enough eyeballs looking at this stuff and caring about this stuff, and enough people are putting on their shows like I'm doing. There's many others doing this, and we all start to look at this information and debate this information. That's why these platforms want to censor these kind of independent channels where we talk about this stuff, because as we start to work through the details, look at the strategies, look at the patterns, we can actually crowdsource out a lot of the kind of vileness that the totalitarians and Marxists are trying to put into the system. So by RFK Jr. being at this particular hearing and saying his points, he's platforming his points, which is very smart way of doing this. He's getting information out into the space, and basically the legacy media is not going to package up his talking points and talk about them. And when the legacy media does not package up his talking points and talk about them, then it starts to create more interest into alternative media channels to say, well, what really went on there? And that starts to take eyeballs away from legacy media and put it more over into the alternative media space. So now basically RFK Jr. in the way that he's operating this talk, this hearing, is creating that movement of attention to different areas. He doesn't be nice if he is a contender for the presidency. And like we'll see what happens there. But the fact that he's kind of generating, before we get into the actual presidential debates, you see Tucker Carlson on one side ripping apart the Republicans, and you see RFK Jr. on the other side ripping apart the Democrats who are trying to censor him when he's on the same team. That should tell you a lot about the team you're playing on when they're trying to tear you down and you're on that same team. So it's all a really interesting soap opera. But as he keeps bringing up each of these particular talking points, you see the other side trying to smash down these talking points. So all he has to do is keep popping them up. And as the other side keeps smashing them down, then that starts to create interest on, oh, okay, what is that talking point? Let's go and investigate it further. So I just mentioned to you that there was a report that he quoted about, how the woo-woo virus plays with different possible racial groups, and just go in. I'll link up this article so you can go and take a look at it and extract that information out and deal with it how you want to deal with it. But it'd be nice because one of the things about Trump is pretty thin-skinned. It take a lot of bombast, a lot of chirping and chirping and chirping, and when you hit Trump, he counterattacks. RFK, what I like about RFK is he doesn't have that kind of thin, well, you're punching me, so I'm going to punch you back, kind of like a baby that can't take a fight properly. RFK can take it, but he's got that. He's got the talking points. He's got the information, and he knows how to bring those points back into the conversation. This is where now they're really scared of RFK Jr. Now, RFK Jr. versus Trump would just be awesome. That would be great to see in 2024. Holy cow. Yeah, who would you tick on that ballot? And, that probably would give, I would say, the Democrats the win in that case. Don't know what's going to happen there. But it definitely is, as RFK gains rise in stature, then grassroots of alternate media really starts to take off as well. And so this is something that we have to keep an eye on. But one of the big things to note, and I think this is, let's put it, probably one of the most important things that's happening is, well, how does the United States stave off a potential economic collapse when the debt gets too high? And I present to you, again, Judy Shelton that I just mentioned. Well, she has a particular idea, and because there's talking about, well, how does she bring the gold standard back in? And I'm not going to talk about gold bugs and remonetizing gold, but she and RFK Jr. is plugged into this, and he's brought this up. And this means that he is a very serious candidate, because you don't bring this up. Is basically, you can potentially create a type of bond that has a gold redemption clause on it. So what does that mean? That if I have a 50-year or 100-year treasury bond, and there's a gold redemption part of the coupon, then basically you're throwing gold up onto the yield curve. And as the price of gold rises, so just say the Federal Reserve says, you know what, we don't care about suppressing the price of gold anymore. We don't care how high it goes, because the better the price of gold goes, then the more that our debt will decrease in relative terms to the price of gold, given that I got gold back redemption now on my bonds, and anybody can buy those bonds, even you and I. So that doesn't mean that back when you had Bernanke and Yellen, this one over here, running the Federal Reserve at a zero interest bound, and part of what Daniel DiMartino Booth is talking about, there's another name to go look up, is that, well, then there's no need for the Federal Reserve. Just throw everything at the zero bound. And what we've seen over since 2008, 2009 financial crisis, and then around 2010, 2011, where quantitative easing started, the money printing and the reduction of the interest rate down to zero, which then hit very close to zero again during the COVID times. You got all this fun money that goes flying all over the place. And then what happens is the zombie companies come into play there, because money basically has no value. Then all these weird projects come into being, and that's where the Davos crowd comes in, and you get these German eugenicists that want to tell us that world's overpopulated, there's a massive climate crisis going on, and all this cheap money can go into kind of fictitious climate change endeavors, which are really to put more control over you and I. But given kind of a potential Six Sigma event of RFK Jr. joining the show and using some of the information that he's pulling from the crowdsourced group of you and I here, talking about this stuff, bringing this forward, that you can take those puzzle pieces and now start to put them into play on the platform that he is granted by running as a presidential nominee. And through that, that is the miracle. So this show is a Tomo, and then a miracle occurred. I give you RFK Jr. I give you Judy Shelton, and potentially a gold back redemption. No, I'm not trying to be a gold bug or anything like that. We're saying he's putting the idea out there. And as we all learn that there's a potential solution to a potential debt default. So just another thing to note is BRICS has been talking about this already. Let's take a quick. Let's take a quick look here. BRICS gold-backed currency. So is there a gold-backed standard coming back? Is BRICS backed by gold? Russia's announcement that BRICS currency will be backed by gold therefore carries substantial weight and could lead to a significant uptick in demand for the precious metal, hence driving up price. Is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? It was more of an announcement that was coming. So it's a part of that seeding the information into the zeitgeist. BRICS is done saying potentially we could go gold back, which now Jerome Powell and with RFK Jr, Judy Shelton need to put a counter move into play. You can't have one side doing gold back and the other side not doing gold back. Money goes to where it is treated best. So if a particular country or block of countries is providing very secure, safe financial instruments that are giving you a definite return on value, you are going to park your money there. So who's going to be left monkey in the middle? It's going to be Europe. So Christine Lagarde is a rock in a hard place right now between the two, because as the U.S. Federal Reserve raises interest rates, that makes money go to where it's going to be treated best. Hey, if I can get 5%, just sit my money in a bank. I haven't had that in a very long time. If Europe can't do that, and then the BRICS countries provide something where it makes you can park your money with them, or in the US is doing something where you can park your money with them, then the whole European project goes down the gutter. So that's why you have this little beggar going over to China and saying, please, 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 don't dump our treasuries, and we'll maybe allegedly stop bothering you about Taiwan and stop bothering you about Ukraine for a while. And kind of, peace is good for business for possibly Chinese interests because they're doing their Belt and Road construction. So if the USA says we're going to F off of that for a while and not bother with that, don't trash our currency, because that means Europe dies. And this one here, I'm pointing to Janet Yellen. I don't have on the screen for you, but this one right here. Is still working to keep Europe in the game, and Europe's going to play really hard. And Europe basically has a whole democratic crew and the executive administration right now still wrapped around their finger, but that is coming apart quickly, and that would be a miracle if those vandals go away. The reason why they're doing all the crazy stuff that they do is because Europe is in competition with the USA. Europe has the in through having an administration that is very Europe friendly at the price of bringing the USA down. And there are those that do not want that to happen. So that is what I have for you today. And I will see you in the next video when we see how these things unravel a little bit more. Have a good one.